Hey, welcome back to Case Studies. This has been a long time coming. It's with who has become kind of one of my all-time best friends, Dave Jensen, business partner, family man, all-American, professional athlete, movie buff, loves a good movie, loves a good documentary.
I'll take that. Soundtrack.
Light hamstrings. Hamstrings, you know, not you can't
Wasn't
take
blessed
them,
with
you can't take them to the bank, you know.
Turkey bowls are out for good.
we were talking the other day, and Dave got invited to go play turkey bowl, and literally, like right when I heard it, I was like, "You're not going, are you? Like, you're 100% you're gonna pull your hamstring." He's like, "I'm going."
Yeah.
And talk to him after. It's like, I pulled it.
Third play.
He's just sniper.
Done.
Just down.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, so excited to get together and chat and, yeah, just kind of hear the Jensen family story.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Excited, man.
Yeah, and
It's
share
fun to be
it.
here.
Yeah, share it. So go back to the beginning, because I think if there's a theme, and what I'm learning is, you know, I'm getting into doing these.
Yeah.
It's from the outset, life looks a lot different for others than when you actually get under the hood. I think it's really easy to look from the outside and see just this rosy perception of like life and just, you know, and I think everybody would look at your life and they would say, it's been easy for them, you know, like you go play at this iconic baseball program in high school, state championship after state championship, and go D1 scholarship and tear it up, and, you know, I go work on Wall Street and beautiful family. I think, you know, when everybody looks at it from the outside, you just see like this linear line of success. And as you get under it, you realize like there's just a tremendous amount of work and struggle that goes into it. I want to go into the struggle. Yeah, adversity. And it's the beauty. It's the gold, you know, the who you become from the struggle.
Yep.
And so I want to go back, because this one I think is a really important part of your story.
Sure.
Talk to me about high school baseball.
I grew up in Henderson, Nevada, where it's desert weather, get to play baseball year round. And I lived in an area where sports were a big deal generally, but like baseball in Green Valley, you know, where I grew up, was a, you know, Little League World Series, and
it was kind of right?
Championships in high school, and ranked in USA Today and all kinds of stuff. And I don't think I really appreciated that it was as big as it was when I was young, because you don't know anything different, but it was a big deal. And I, you know, played a lot of sports, but baseball was what ultimately caught my heart and community was into, and had opportunities with. So yeah, I loved it. Hitting a baseball to this day, when I think of things that get me excited, or that I could just like put a smile on my face, you know, instantly, it's thinking about hitting a baseball squarely and just smashing it, whether it's a past moment or if I went to the cages tomorrow with you.
You still love it.
And I had 3 that I just squared up perfectly, what that would feel like, and it would just make me happy.
Yeah.
I'd say, yeah, let's go. Even though the truth is I haven't been to the cages in years. So
but did it like 10,000 hours. I mean, that was life growing up.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of everything. But you didn't go to like a normal high school, even a good high school. Like you went to one of the best programs in the entire nation.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your coach.
Oh man, he's a legend. He was voted National Coach of the Year. He coached guys like Greg Maddox and Chad Hermanson and Tyler Houston, and you know, his staff also coached like Bryce Harper. Coach Sam Thomas is Bryce Harper's coach. A lot of good talents come over the years.
Wow.
But he, you know, the type of coach that he was almost doesn't exist these days. He
was kind of old school.
He was tough.
Yeah.
You know, there wasn't an I guy allowed to be there. The guys that I played with in Little League that were stars, 2 of them in particular, they just didn't like how hard he worked them.
Yeah.
and that they didn't get treated special. And so they went to a school across the city
Yeah.
and moved their families. And a lot of people would quit because it was just so hard physically,
I mean, you guys like ran, it was like,
Yeah, you'd think,
rigorous.
yeah, maybe not quite as crazy as this Urban Meyer Swamp Kings documentary I just watched about the Florida Gators the other day, but similar to that, where it's just, drop 10, 15 pounds before the baseball season from just like, high intensity interval training and sprinting and 2-mile run. You have to run in 13 minutes and 15 seconds. So you can't make the team.
Yeah, he just demanded it, right? Like there was this level of like excellence and this level of discipline that was just non-negotiable with him. Like the standard was like extremely high.
Yeah. And it was if you don't dive for the ball, you might get pulled out of the game. You know what I'm saying? Like if you don't get dirty, or if you olay it and you don't get your body in front of it, or frankly, if you get out of the way of a pitch that you could have taken on your back and get your team a free base.
Yeah.
Those are things that were just part of the program, sprinting on and off the field to take your position. And then just like a complete hatred of losing, and anybody smiling on the bus after a loss, which only happened about once a season out of 35
it's just
games.
Not okay.
It was, yeah. And that, by and large, it shaped me in a really amazing way, but it wasn't all great. My sophomore year, I broke into the scene. It's only sophomore starting on the team, and I'm just living my best life. Can't believe I'm here. And win state, guys getting drafted.
So you started as a sophomore.
Yeah. And then by my junior year, I think I would probably say it went to my head a little bit. I'm thinking I'm pretty special. And that doesn't fly with my coach, combined with me getting into a slump. And I just kind of got in my head, and he got in my head, and I end up sitting the bench as our team, wins the state championship the year after I was like out on the field,
Is that like still to this day, like one of the hardest things you've ever experienced?
Yeah, it's for sure. It's, I wanted to quit. I almost quit, just embarrassed.
Yeah.
And it's one of those moments where you're just like, oh my gosh, what would have happened if I had quit, And I was like, just right there hanging from a thread. And I credit my dad, who puts his arm around me, takes me to California, meet with this great hitting coach, this guy named Scott Majors, who before we even swung the bat, we'd talked for 3 hours standing right next to each other on a junior college field in Orange County. And he just opened my mind to how to think about life, goal setting, how to think about taking coaching, how to think about work ethic and the game. And it just like energized me. He believed in me, even though I barely met him. And then I just changed
You responded.
I responded. I swallowed my pride. I went to work, had a couple of mechanical things I adjusted. And then after that, and I would say since then, it's this belief that if you do more than other people, and if you prove to yourself that you put in the work, the confidence and the results will typically follow.
You just decided I'm going to like just outwork everybody.
Yeah. I mean, but we were having like 4-hour practice a day, and I'd go eat, and then I'd go to the Saturn dealership in Henderson, where they had a batting cage, and I'd hit by myself for an hour or two, or bring somebody with me sometimes. And so by the time the season started,
you were just dialed.
I was dialed. Yep. So came back strong, and but it was I think back on how that shaped me, and it has to have shaped me so much because I think about it every single day.
Yeah.
And wanting to win, and you learn to deal with pain. It's almost like you push yourself past points where you're comfortable, where you think you can't go, and then you realize you can go there, or you can at least for a while.
Yeah.
And you just realize that you can work harder than you thought, and it builds a lot of confidence. So
it's got to be so foundational. Like I think I'm in this experience right now. I've got one of my daughters that is in this competitive cheer program that somehow, like in the nation, they're one of the best programs in the entire nation.
Yeah.
And I see my daughter, and she's like last year, she was going 6 days a week. And it's so hardcore. And they have these standards where if you don't hit your routine perfectly during the competition, you go back to the gym that night on a Saturday night and keep doing the routine till you do it.
Mm.
And there's a bunch of nights that I'm showing up at 10:15 to go pick my daughter up on a Saturday night. And none of the parents are happy. Inconvenient for everybody, but these,
it's a standard.
But these coaches
of excellence,
and she's so great, Alexa and Anthony, but they just have these like standards of excellence and kind of like could care less what parents think, kids think, this and the results. But I see the confidence. Like I can see my daughter becoming just confident and prideful.
Yeah.
And pride in a good way of like, I did something hard and this is foundational to me.
She's bought in.
And I've known that with you, like that so many times as we've talked about your past, that coach and his unorthodox kind of probably get canceled in 2024 mentality, old school mentality.
But a big heart too. I think that's part of the combo. Is he didn't show it much, but on occasion, there's one moment that comes to mind. You know, he believed that a baseball hat should always be put on how it should be put on. It should never be put on backwards, particularly the Green Valley Gators baseball hat. And so if you ever had the Green Valley Gators baseball hat on backwards and he saw you do that, or even on any other hat, and you show up Saturday morning to practice, you know, he's just start running. And so that was just a known thing. Some of it was just like there's this skater way, right? Just like you just got done saying about
just a standard.
Ava, just you know, just a high standard. Might be fine for other programs, but this is what we do, you know. And when we won state my sophomore year, I remember getting on the bus and we just dogpiled. Everybody's so happy. And here comes Coach Roger Fairless with his handlebar mustache and his raspy voice and had a couple hip replacements, you know, so just, you know, and he, and as he gets on, right as he's getting on, somebody yells, "Hey, everybody put your hats on backwards." And so we put our hats on backwards and he gets up there and he sees us and he just goes, "You motherfuckers." And like and we laugh and then he just tears start streaming down his face. And he goes, "I love you guys." And I don't think there was anybody in that bus that wasn't crying in that moment because you knew that this really hard man that had put you through hell also didn't care about you, but he wanted to make you a man.
Yeah.
And he wanted to drive you to excellence and get the best out of you.
Yeah.
And he wanted you to do it with respect and honor. And he wasn't willing to, like, that was what it was going to be, or it wasn't probably a good fit for you.
Yeah.
You know? So, anyway, I'm in touch with him. He's been through some harder health things lately. And it's been cool to, you know, see the softer side of him in more recent years.
Yeah, it's so special. There's a couple other things that were so special about that story to me. And I think about that a lot when I think about your story. Talk about your dad in the recruiting process and just kind of how much he cared. That you succeeded. And you touched on it, from taking you to California to get hitting.
And you sure people want to hear this stuff?
Because
we're talking about
stuff, man.
Dave's like ancient history, glory days.
No, but this stuff matters. I think when I go into the stuff that shapes me, it's these little moments, you know, and you know, I think about. I mean, just go into it. Like you've told me this story before about how you got your scholarship at BYU.
Yeah. I think it's made me think about, and you know, my mom has done like endless amazing things to sacrifice for us, and like, you know, just so many amazing things. She taught us so much. Amazing mom too. And she sacrificed for while my dad would be out helping me with this stuff. But but you know, because I sat the bench that junior year, that's the year you get recruited on in baseball, at least at that time. To, you know, on the heels of that season, is you getting offers from different colleges. Well, if you're not playing your junior year, that doesn't really help, right?
It's not a great signal.
Yeah. And so, got myself right, like I told you, with this guy, Scott Majors, and I come back working hard, had a good summer. Coach hears I've been doing great, Coach Fairless, and he says, "Hey, I know you play football and you're starting this year and you're one of the captains. So probably not for you, but I just want you to know that the Chicago Cubs that have a wood bat scout league team in Phoenix, Arizona, they're going to be playing all fall, on the weekends. And I got you a spot there if you want it. You'll get seen by all kinds of pro scouts and all best colleges. Coaches will come." And I wasn't sure if I'd do it or not. And then I think 4 days later at football practice, I got a concussion. And I just was like, man, I just think baseball is my ticket and I love it. I think I love it more than football. I'm going to do this thing. But it was going to require sacrifice at the home. It took my dad driving me down or flying with me, several weekends, had to quit football. But he was amazing. It was a neat bonding thing. But it also was when I think about how did I meet Coach Gary Polans, it's cool because, and some of this lives on beyond baseball, right? What we do with work and stuff, but he was just out hustling in the crowd.
Yeah.
He's out talking to the coaches. He's out recruiting coaches to come watch me hit. And he eventually pulls over, makes some small talk. "Hey, I went to BYU. My son's over here. Could you just watch him one at bat and, have a great at bat, smash a double in the gap, hit another one down the line next at bat." And next thing you know, I get some scholarship offers from a number of schools, including BYU, but it was just, he was just all in on me. You think back on that Scott Majors taking me there, taking me here, and just believing in me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think about that a lot now that I have 5 kids of my own.
That's where I go, is the love of a dad for a child.
Yeah.
And what you're willing to go do for your kid.
Yeah.
And even it had to have been so hard for him to see you struggle that junior year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because he knew it was there and you knew it was there. And then but just never quit you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the opposite of quit you, he's out selling. He's out hunting down the coach and
100%.
selling, "Hey, this might
oh my gosh.
you need to come watch."
He was
guy.
I could go on. I mean, he was a lawyer in Las Vegas. So he had some connections and he'd represent some of the hotels and casinos and stuff. And there were pro scouts in high school that'd come watch me. And he's like, "Hey guys, happy to get you on Indian Wells Golf Course, get it all comped. You just have to have my son be part of the foursome." So I'm going out and golfing with all these pro scouts as a senior in high school. And anyway, he just
hustling
and networking and being creative and being proactive.
And I think, he did that for all of your brothers,
Yeah.
You guys just had such amazing parents. And I think, me and you are in that stage now where we got 5 kids and we got kids that are coming up and you're like, dude, what wouldn't you do for your kid, give them a chance. And anyway,
no, it's fun. So it's a lot of fun.
I think it's a special part of the story. So fast forward, went to BYU.
Yeah.
Played well as a freshman.
Yeah.
And then decided to go on a mission.
Yeah. Yeah. I was a little different MO in high school. Going to BYU was something of a miracle in our family that I would choose to go there at that time in my life.
Weren't kind of fully in on church and religion and even just kind of BYU was a stretch for you. Kind of, it wasn't that culture, that environment was a little bit of sticker shock that first year.
Yeah. It's cold. I think I had a girlfriend going to a different school playing soccer at the time. It was, and I had a bad attitude about it. But as time went on and the season starts and then, it finishes, my buddies going on missions and they were relatable to me. They were good guys. They were cool guys. And I knew why they were going. And I wasn't just looking at it from afar or judging from afar. And I, anyway, just started to have my own, think about it more for the first time, actually considering it. Accepted an invite to go up to Alaska to play baseball with the Fairbanks Gold Panners in this prestigious wood bat league with all these future pro ball players on my team that are Long Beach State and Stanford and USC and Cal State Fullerton guys, and I went up there and I played well, but I decided, early on, like if I was going to do this mission, I need to really spend some time thinking about it. It's a big decision. Could derail the baseball ambitions. I'd been drafted out of high school and I felt like I had real potential to do that.
To go play pro ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my freshman year was freshman All-American, and this league I was playing really well. These guys were trying to get me to transfer from BYU to ASU and to Cal State Fullerton. And then one day I show up and I tell them all, I've decided to hang up my cleats and go on a mission, and they're just like, what? And I'm actually pretty proud. I didn't tell my mom or dad about it. I wanted it to be a pretty personal choice. I felt that was important. And I felt pressures to not go. I felt pressures to go.
Yeah.
And back then there was no phones and I don't know, texts and whatever. And so I was literally up just in Alaska, living in the basement with some host family, reading my scriptures and praying for the first time and deciding, you know what? There's a lot bigger things out there than just baseball and just me. And I'm going to go take a couple years and do this. Don't entirely know why. It just feels good. And so that's what I did. And I went to Uruguay, had a really beautiful experience. And yeah, it's pretty cool how it all works out.
But came back and tore it up, right? Like you didn't like, I came back on my mission. It was like, I forgot how to play sports.
Yeah.
Like it was such the fall off from before. I never was able to fully like get back to where I was at before I left. But like you came back and just like lit the town on fire.
Yeah. It wasn't up and to the right. Like you just said, by the end of the season it was, but the first quarter of the season, I'm hitting in college with the metal bat, you better be hitting in the close to 300. And I was hitting like 230 and I'm hitting fourth in the lineup, like for 25 games. They're just being patient with me and hoping I come around. And so I was physically in good shape, but there was just something that wasn't quite clicking yet.
Hand-eye or whatever. And baseball's so much of that.
And I think this is where the slump thing from back in high school, I think I just believed more and I just kept working and I tried to keep a good attitude. And then sure enough, right when I go to play UNLV in my hometown and just starts clicking. And I just completely went off for the rest of the year.
Do you think it was like that trigger of like, I'm home?
I think so.
Like there's something magic. Like I had this experience. I was playing junior college baseball and we're playing up in Montana, and we made this road trip through Utah. And I remember we played like Salt Lake Community College.
You play well.
But we played up at like this stadium in Ogden. It was an old pro stadium, the Raptor Stadium or whatever. And it was where we won the state championship.
Yeah.
And had played really well there.
Yeah. Well, that's where I played. It's the same thing. Yeah.
And I it was like this, like I just went there and had so much confidence and like played as good a ball as I ever played that season.
Yeah.
On that stretch. It was like a 2 or 3 game stretch.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think about that going back to home, and it's almost like hey, comfortable, and you've done so well there and had so much success.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's totally true. I had that coach in the stands and my family, a bunch of friends, and I think I was like 4 for 6, 5 for 5, 4 doubles, 2 home runs, that type of thing.
Isn't that crazy how just momentum, like, we're talking about sports, but you think about momentum in life.
Yep.
And just how important it is to get momentum.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And just like,
just building on.
You can ride it, you know, like, and when you don't have it, it's so hard. But when you get it, it's like everything's easy. You know what I mean?
For sure. We've felt that across Sandlot times here and there.
Yeah.
For sure.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, so ended up being a great season. And, we won the Mountain West Conference, which was a lot of fun. We got to go make some noise in the NCAA tournament. I ended up, being a big part of that. And so after 230, I think I ended up a little over 410.
That's crazy. Including the first 25 games.
Yeah,
so you had been like hitting 500 the last half of the season.
Yep. Just a lot of cool things. Some random phone call from Steve Young on my voicemail, just being hearing about some of my success, being super nice to say, don't know a lot about, baseball, but I know a lot about being a pro athlete and being a kind of member of the church and trying to do all that and balance all that if I can ever be helpful. Got to spend time with him, meet him, talk to him, and ended up getting drafted by the Royals, third round. And so, it was, eventually did come around, but it wasn't immediately get back and kick off the rust, And
you played pro ball.
Yep. Yeah.
Talk to me about that experience. Cause I think every kid's dream is to go like play pro ball, but there was a mix of like, it was amazing, but it was also really hard.
Yeah. I think, professional sports, there's like some fundamental differences from college, right? I guess these days it's blending closer together because you have this NIL money and it's more business in some ways. That wasn't the case back then, but it's very much a business in pro sports, and the minor leagues isn't glamorous, baseball. It's a ton of games. Instead of playing 3 games a week, you're playing like 28 games in 30 days. And you're
playing every day, basically.
On a bus. Yeah, you're practicing before your games. And, it's like, it's the best. And then there's the challenges too. You're literally getting paid to be out in the sunshine with your friends and playing this beautiful game and going up against great competition. And how fun is that, you know, and have a chance to maybe make the big leagues.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's tough. It's cutthroat. It's, people, all kinds of backgrounds.
Did it ever click for you in the pros like it did in college? Like, did it ever like all the stars align where you're like, I'm going to go play in the bigs?
No, I wish I had I think you had Jeremy Guthrie in here recently, and it was so fun to admire his and hear that one. I listened to that podcast, and we were close to around the same time frame. But I never really had that. I did get to had some success, and then got invited to the big league spring training. Had a bunch of big league at bats, which is super fun.
Yeah,
some random stuff. I played pro baseball with Garth Brooks, the country singer, who for a minute was retired from music and asked the Royals if he could just come live a dream and play on a big league team at spring training. So anyway, just some random cool hitting lessons with George Brett and Hall of Famer, some neat experiences. But yeah, at the end of the day, wasn't destined for, the big league, end game for my career.
Yeah.
But learned a ton. And then it's, get scrappy on what do you do next, which I talk to a lot of young athletes these days about, because it's
we were just upstairs with the kid that just finished up at Stanford.
Yeah.
And the same thing,
football player.
Yeah. Football player, athlete.
Yep.
All like you walk on. So all the characteristics that like have you make a team and have you succeed in that, and now trying to go apply that in the business world, but it's new and it's different. You've got like the fundamental, like work hard, goal setting, determination, teamwork, leadership, but there's a business context that it's just a new language.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was that transition for you? Was it easy? Like, did those skills transition like pretty seamlessly, or did it take a little longer?
I think the same stuff that serves you to have success in one field that you specialize in.
Yeah.
It's the same thing you can rely on. And I think I didn't realize at the time. I was nervous. You feel like your identity's all this one thing. You're scared what happens next. In my case, I end up getting released. You're still kind of like, that sucked, but it's like digging deep, getting back up and saying, okay, what's next? What's the next chapter? My parents had recently been through divorce. There's a bunch of things,
hard things.
Didn't make it like an easy time.
Yeah.
But it was also like, I know what I can do. I know what's important in life. I've got a good foundation. I know how to work hard. I know how to work harder than other people. I'm willing to do, I think, what a lot of other people aren't.
You just went back to the grind.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to go wrap up school. And then I got these.
Because you hadn't finished your undergrad yet.
Not yet.
You left early. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I came back and I finished, and I went to work in sales, like competitive sales in a medical device industry, the company called Stryker.
For Stryker, right? Which they like notoriously have a really excellent training program and culture, and just kind of are known for recruiting college athletes. Like they really like people that know how to compete.
They like people that know how to compete. That must have been a rumor on the training program.
No training.
There was zero training. They put me in an operating. The first time in an operating room, I walked right across the area where you're not supposed to walk, and the doctor about stabbed me with the scalpel.
Ain't you alive?
I'm wearing scrubs. I'm in his domain, and I would just walk right in. Nobody told me anything about that. Like, maybe there's training now, but it was just throw you in the mix. And frankly, that's how life is most of the time, right?
Yeah.
And I had to figure it out, and I did pretty good, but it never was like a perfect fit for me.
Was it never like your calling? Like, were you ever like?
No, I think, man, as we talk about principles, I didn't know what I fully wanted to do, but I needed to pick something. I needed to go make some money. I needed to get some experience, and this company seemed to really like me. I could make some good money, and felt like it might be something I'd love. And so I think that's some of it. Just start in your career, get going.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't find what you love, but you find a few things that that you're good at, and some things you definitely don't love, right? And you just keep moving.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, for me, had some success, crazy cool to be in the operating room and be part of something so like specialized.
Go have those experiences,
and important, and have some role in that to help doctors and patients. But ultimately, it was like anatomy, surgeries, medicine wasn't my like, and fixing things. You have to fix stuff. Sometimes high stress patients about to go under, something's not quite working. Anyway, grateful for it. Decided to go back to business school and focus on investments and finance.
Went back to BYU, right?
Yeah.
And so this is one that's so interesting. My wife right now, she's working to go do an executive MBA.
Yeah.
And she's just never been in that world. So she's doing this core skills program at Harvard.
Just drinking from the fire hose.
And it's like accounting and finance and behavioral economics and statistics. And it's just like these concepts that are like a different language.
Yeah.
And I was talking to her the other night, and I was talking to Dave, and Dave was telling me like a lot of these concepts, I had no idea what they meant till I was 27, 28 years old, like this language.
Yeah.
That I think a lot of these young kids, they get on this track when they're 19, 20, 21 and get on that iBank track.
Oh, for sure.
Consulting. And that it's so funny that me and you were in finance today, but that wasn't like, sure as heck wasn't my world, but even your world, it wasn't really like, right.
World.
Yeah.
My dad was a lawyer. But what I remember was like him working super hard, hustling, him being really good with people and valuing networking and teaching me that. Doing things the right way. I remember my mom supporting him and being amazing and, and teaching me the right things. But I also remember my dad saying, son, I think you probably want to hire lawyers. I don't think you want to be a lawyer.
Wow.
Do something where you probably could hire lawyers. I remember saying, and I watched what he did, and it was fascinating, but it never called to me.
Yeah.
But, he worked his tail off, and I think it called to him for the most part.
Yeah. He was good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but did your MBA,
yeah.
and then started on the finance track. You went and worked with Blake as an intern over at Pelion.
Yep.
Yep. And then ultimately like got a chance to go back east and work in New York.
That's right.
So talk to me about Brian Murphy. Because I think he's become a guy that's special to both of us, but specifically to you. Talk to me about where he fits as far as being influential in your career.
Yeah, I think you just when you look back at any success you've had, there's usually people in your life that took some chance on you, right? Went out on a limb for you when it maybe wasn't super, I don't know, clear that they should have, or maybe didn't have the full experience. In my case, even though I'd had a couple internships, I didn't have a ton of finance background. But I was out hustling and I worked hard, and I think he saw something in me and gave me an opportunity to go join his investment firm back east.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just forever grateful for that. He worked super hard. That's one thing that I remember is just, he led from the front, it was both brilliant and just tenacious, and just, he was a road warrior.
Kind of force of will too.
Yep.
Right?
No, he raised money, and
yeah.
I think everybody during that time, around 2009, 2015 timeframe, that wasn't an easy time, by the way.
Yeah.
Financial crisis just happened, and Brian led from the front. There's lots of great contributors at that firm, but and just such a generous guy.
Yeah.
You've got to know him on that side of things, and so quick to give and to be available. So yeah, I ended up being able to work for him on his team and on the investment team. And
but there was a key point in there, right? Because you didn't start on the investment side, right?
No.
So talk to me about this, because I think this is like, when you think about connecting the dots.
Yeah.
Like, that was an important pivot.
Yeah.
In your career.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how that happened, where you were at, and then how you end up being on the investment side.
Yeah. I was on the marketing team, so I was helping them basically on the business development side, raising capital and interacting with existing investors and stuff. And I was happy with that. But he told me early on, which is a great piece of advice for anybody. Hey, you ought to understand the full business, not just this part that you're in.
Yep.
And see if you can't build relationships and help people in these other parts of the business.
Wow.
And if you do that, you will be way more effective over time, is on my team, raising capital and supporting existing investors. And so at the time I wasn't married. I did, was dating serious, my now wife. Right. And I was all in on career, no kids. So I was just like, I got nothing but time. And I know I like this stuff. It's fascinating to me. And if there's any time to plow into it and put extra time, and it's now at this point in my career. And so I started helping the investment team, and I just said, hey, I finished my other work over here. Do you mind if I go join these guys? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So, and I just helped them out, and I attended some meetings, did some work at nights for them that they liked. And, my boss, I guess she became my boss. There's a woman there named Donna. She approached Brian to have me come join her team. He said no. He wanted me on his team, feeling that's kind of funny, feeling I think that's good type of thing.
Yeah.
And then maybe a month later or something, somebody, mid-level on her team joins a different firm. And now she's got a real
opportunity.
Yeah. And she's a real need. And so she approaches me and says, hey, I want to approach Brian again, but before there's other people that want this job here at this firm. So would you be in? And I talked to my wife, and it was one of those special little moments.
Big opportunity, right?
Yeah, big opportunity, and I ultimately thought, well, I'm probably going to end up on Brian's team. I didn't really know where I'd go. You don't always know when you're that young, right?
Yeah.
But it seemed like a great opportunity to get to know the business and learn an additional skill set. So jumped on it, and I spent the next 10 years investing there at another firm. And
because I think about that switch, and I think about even what me and you were doing now with Sandlot. Sandlot wouldn't exist without that switch. You know what I mean? Like the
what switch is that?
Getting on the investment side.
Oh, sure.
The reps that you got.
Yeah.
Underwriting funds and doing direct co-invests and just the volume.
Yeah.
Of looking at every different fund out there and performance and, what I mean? Just learning the business.
Yeah.
Like that, like Sandlot would not exist with like this.
Well, and getting beat up at investment committees.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing like getting your teeth kicked in to teach you a lesson.
Well, and I just think you saw every fund that exists, every relevant fund out there.
Yeah.
you were able to see their investment decks and to see their performance and
Meet with them. Yeah.
what decile or quartile their performance was at, and the founders, and go meet with them and pitching them on actually giving them capital and why.
Yep.
Anyway, it's so interesting to see that skill set play out later.
Yeah.
In kind
absolutely.
of the next chapter of the career.
Yeah.
So why did you leave it? Because you're in this world, but you just got like an entrepreneurial bug where you felt like I need to go hang my own shingle.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think back on it's somewhat of these feelings you have. It's a mix of feelings and memories, right? But there was like a feeling, I'm almost 10 years into this. I'm wearing a suit every day.
Yeah.
I'm back east. I'm making real good money, and I enjoy what I do. People would probably kill for it, but it's almost like too cush. And I just felt like, I don't know.
It was pretty comfortable.
It was felt comfortable, and I felt like it was time to do something. Either start something, join a family office that's where you could be a little more creative and entrepreneurial. And just ultimately joined up and ended up building a data analytics consulting company. It leveraged a bunch of my skills and network from all those 10 years, because we had some data analysts and some really great technical people that knew how to help on the business side, get you the right insights, the right, KPIs in real time. And we basically took those use cases and those resources on our team, and we'd go to the same private equity funds and folks that I had got to know and say, hey, we have something of value for your companies. You're trying to grow them. You're trying to improve them. We can help with that. Here's how our business model works. Here's what we do. Here's why it makes sense. And so we ended up supporting a bunch of big PE firms and their portfolio companies over the next, 2-3 years, and started a company from scratch. So I think it was for sure way harder than I thought it would be. And, probably not the best business model, but really cool. I think
cool experience
for sure.
Yeah.
It was I got what I wished for, I guess. I just told you I was like feeling comfortable, and I was feeling
uncomfortable.
I immediately was uncomfortable, and it was pushing me, and it was technical, and I'm not, I didn't spend my life in engineering and computer science.
What do you think was the hardest thing about it?
There's so many things that you could take away. Some of it is just like project based. I don't know. We're trying to get into details here or not on this podcast, but it's like starting with something. It's hard to sell consulting, right?
And really frame the value of what you're bringing.
Yeah. Without them just trying to suck your brain and your.
I think
analysis.
About us paying consultants right now, and I'm like, we're pretty tight with it's that check's hard to write. You know what I mean? It's tough to justify, and especially ongoing.
Yeah. So it was still fantastic experience, and it gave me a founding experience, and it gave me some grit and in some failure too. I think I would say we kind of banged our head against the wall on which industry would crack into. I think we're trying to search for identity.
Just trying to find that product market
fit.
Yeah.
And we thought we'd become a software company, but we never really found the right problem to solve with technology. So it's just so many lessons, I think about. But it's ultimately what led us to Utah.
Yeah.
Landed Traeger Grills. It took us out this direction. Utah all of a sudden was super interesting place.
Because Traeger was one of your first clients, right?
Yeah. And I just never thought we'd come back to Utah, but it was so interesting here. And of course, I had family that was no longer not married, was married, had 5 kids, tough pregnancy with twins for my wife in the hospital a couple months. There's lots of things we learned and grateful for, and amazing people out that part of the country. The 10 years away from here for us as people and as a family, we're I don't know. It's hard to quantify. It's just so valuable to us and special. That said, it's life's pretty good here, and we've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Talk to me about Lizzie and how she fits in the mix, and like you take kind of the whole picture.
Yeah.
And talk to me about like how important that is, and kind of the relationship, and how you think about marriage, how you think about how it all fits.
Yeah, I mean, it truly is like the best, and it can be the worst too when it's not going well, but it's the best. Like we have 5 kids. Liz has been amazing. She's comes from just a tremendous family. Her parents are so awesome. They've been so great to me and our kids, and so fun to have them closer.
Yeah.
Have them in our lives. And, and yet she's just like, it's one of those things, man. You just, some people get lucky with who they marry, she just like brings out a better part of me, and she works hard. She just has a huge heart, huge faith, and, it's family first. But she's also like, she's watched her mom support a dad who's had some ambition and gone for things and not taken the easy route in a lot of cases. And I just think that's how she's built. And so that's been great because she's just so
from
supportive.
A support standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And believing in her husband's standpoint.
Yeah.
I think there was times when I was first to that investment team, come home and probably a little too honest with her on how like I felt like
vulnerable.
I didn't fully, was it going to work out? Leading an investment committee with 30 managing directors and 60 people in the room. And I haven't really ever done this. And I'm having to answer questions that I don't even know if I fully understood the questions. It's like, and 9 years later, I'm leading those discussions and it's working out fantastic. And I'm feeling like I'm not growing anymore. Right. And so it worked out great, but she just was there the whole time, and just supporting and believing. And man, I think that's one.
I mean, from the outside looking in, and we know you guys really well, but from the outside looking in, it's just, she is just like a force of nature. She's just like, you take that family.
Yeah.
And there's a characteristic in, her family with Lon and Carrie, and, like they just have this drive. And it's so special. I think it's like one of the things that I admire the most about that family is just this grit and determination and will. And she just has it. And you kind of see that,
Yeah. I think, it comes back to some of the roots, I think, Dad didn't grow up with much, from Pocatello, and he worked hard, working hard got him to places in life, and keeping his faith as a top priority. And he just was really good at passing that on, and I think when you meet her and her siblings, they're so much fun too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a huge blessing to have them in my life for sure.
How'd Sandlot happen? Yeah,
man. So, I mean, it's wild. It seems like it was yesterday, right? We're just getting this thing going. Man, so we're hanging out in Utah. You and I meet in this office upstairs, as I'm still doing the data analytics company, Beacon Data, and start hanging out. You're just finishing out at Vivint and figuring out what you're going to do next. And COVID happens. We're tinkering around with ways we might partner. And all of a sudden, just spot this opportunity with this airline, Breeze, and go for it, and works out great. And it's an investment. Question is it going to be?
So break it down though, like, because that I still remember, I think we were working out or we were doing something.
Yeah.
And you told me like, hey, there's this opportunity because COVID, there's no possible way that, you would have had a seat at that table in a normal environment.
Yeah.
Like David's doing his 6th airline, so much success. That thing would have been oversubscribed every different direction. And then COVID hits and airlines just get nuked. Like,
Yeah.
There's like this tiny little window,
In time.
the market just frowned on airlines in a big way. I still remember you were, raising money, and somebody that you really respected, you were talking to about investing in the deal, and they're like, airlines during COVID, Dave? Well, it's a really good idea. Kind of mocking you. You know what I mean? Just kind of stating the obvious or whatever. But
yeah.
So how'd you put it together? Like, I think,
Yeah. It's one of those magic moments. And I don't know, I'll trace a lot of things back to this one, right? Because it represents so many good things. But you think about those 10 years of investments, you think of the people you meet along the way, my partner at Beacon, his father-in-law was David Nealman. So I got to know David there and a little bit independent of that too, just being out there in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And I think the thought initially was there might be an opportunity to put our personal money in this,
to invest
in this airline. And wouldn't that be great? And at the time he had just told all the private equity firms that had supported him in past airlines, not this time. I got this, the balance sheet, the capacity, the capability, the board, the strategy, the aircrafts, I'm good, except COVID. Right. And so COVID hits and, just changed things.
The dynamic.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, for all of airlines, and I think David in that moment was thinking about, there's not a visibility on a lot of things, especially like vaccine and stuff. And so, and just for a minute, there was not everybody was as responsive as they were. Right. And just kind of hustled and tried to be helpful. Tried to figure out a way to solve a problem for somebody that I felt like I had an ability to do, and not bold enough to ask him if he'd let me do it, at scale.
Yeah.
And called some friends, guys like Brian Murphy and friends in the industry, and like on the legal side and compliance and
when I think about like the purpose of this podcast, and even the name, it's kind of case studies.
Yeah.
And this particular case, the Breeze Airways case, is so fascinating to me. If we didn't talk about anything other than like this one thing and actually like broke it down, I just think there's so much gold in like, this is how magic happens. And like, I'm listening to you and I'm talking, and I was a witness to this. I was an investor in this deal. I was, you trying to be helpful to you as a friend, but I was an investor.
Yeah, you liked it.
But I still remember you coming to me and saying, yeah, I think there's could be a chance to invest. But then it's getting resourceful, and it's calling the Chad Packards, and it's calling Brian Murphy, and it's actually figuring out how to set up an entity that could take the investment.
Yeah.
And then it's connecting the people with the money with the story and framing it in a way that's simple, and then creating a timeline and having people decide yes or no, and going through that, and kind of in the course of like 3 or 4 weeks, maybe a month, all of a sudden this business was born out of this opportunity. But it really was kind of the culmination of your whole life's work. You know what I mean? Like, you'd prepped your whole life for that moment, but you still had to like take the leap of faith. Like, it wasn't like there was no clear path.
No, for sure. And I mean, and it's just, to this day, we get scrappy in their sprints, and like, I mean, there were like all-nighters going on.
Yeah.
Because there were real constraints and limited allocation, and it was, kind of getting one shot Eminem type of, moment.
Yeah.
And just sending it and hoping it works out great, getting in the arena, a little vulnerable. I can remember the difference between the first time I stood up in front of everybody. All these guys have been my bosses. They have bigger net worths than me that are reviewing this opportunity.
Probably some insecurities. A little bit
of insecurity. I mean, I'm confident enough, obviously, or I wouldn't have been up there. But there was like, by the time I got up the second time, just a week later, it was 100% different.
So much certainty.
I feel like I'd stepped into my own self there. I'd filled in that confidence, and I knew what to do, and I knew I could do it. You know what I mean? Some of that came from a lot of other people. Brian Murphy giving me some feedback on how I could do it. Chad Packer telling me how to navigate the legal side, there's some adversity, some bumps in the road. It wasn't all, everybody wanted that allocation, not just me. It got pretty frothy.
Politics.
Pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure.
We were a different approach to capital in a fairly institutional world. And and so like navigating some of that stuff, it was also COVID, should we require wires? Is the retail people's money actually going to show up? If they sign a doc, and it's so many things that you're right. We could talk probably a long time about, but in the end, it was just being resourceful, trying to solve a problem, trying to be helpful, hustling, taking action, using an entity that happened to be called Sandlot, which eventually becomes the name of the firm.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great story. So, you had an LLC that was called Sandlot, right?
Yeah. Me and Liz just had an LLC called Sandlot Investments, and we needed an LLC quick because allocation in this great deal depended on it, and it would save us a couple days, and sounded like a great name. I gave it about 1 second of thought.
So great.
And so probably had to have a name. Sandlot sounds like a good one for now. Let's go.
So great.
And so that's pretty much it, man.
So talk to me, you fast forward 3.5 years, it's hundreds of.
Yeah. And the last thing, it's hard to not think about the humbling thought of like just David letting me be a part of that.
Yeah.
And I think the airline needed it at the time. So I think we helped him a lot too.
Yeah.
But it's pretty humbling to think about that. And and then all the people that have placed trust in us, and the story's not over. Still.
We did a live podcast with him a couple nights ago.
Yeah.
And it's, so fun to hear his story.
Yeah.
The highs and the lows and all the steps in between, such a special human.
Yeah.
There was one in particular where he was talking about, he was with Morris Air, and there was, a group that came in and given him some investment capital.
Yeah.
And a short time later, they sold the company to Southwest.
Yeah.
And it was a good return for the, investor. It would have been a 2X on their money. And the investment group came back and they just kind of weren't fully happy with it, and talked to David, and, they said, yeah, this isn't what we were planning on, and it happened a little too quick. And he said, well, what do you think is fair? And they said 2.5, we think is fair. And he just paid them more.
Just gave it to him.
And it was so interesting to listen to that and just say, like, why would he do that? You had a deal, it was a fair deal, it was a good deal for them. And his answer was really interesting. It was just like, I want everybody to be happy. But he talked about a certain leader that had educated him on kind of the marginal utility of money. And that ultimately it's about the same outcome for him either way, whether it's 10 or, that first million is worth so much more to you than the second or third or fourth.
Yeah.
And ultimately, he wanted his partners to be happy. And the back end of that story was the next time that he went and did an airline, they were the first ones in, and they wrote a big check, and they've been with him ever since. Michael Lazarus, who you've worked with. And
I guess I would add to that. He also just cared a lot about people.
Yeah.
I think you and I care a lot about people. And so I think when you can sense it when somebody else, it matters that people have a good experience. It matters. Like he just cares about people. That's why the airlines are so successful. He cares about every passenger. You know what I'm saying? Cares about each one of his kids. And so I think that's a big. I think that's leadership too.
But I think you, we probably look to David, and we look to the Todd Petersons,
for sure.
And we look to the Brian Murphys, and like these people as
that's where you get inspired.
Models, and even the Jeremy Andrus and the Tragers and the different, the Ryan Smiths, these guys that are just, they've done something really special.
Yep.
but they do it in a way that's really special.
Yep.
And so much of it is people-centric and loving people and giving back to people. And when I look at those people, it fires me up. It's like, that's what I want to be. I want to be that, I want to be that guy that gave too much. I want to be that guy that, contributed so much.
You're good at that. You've inspired me in a huge way. It's been like a huge blessing. You and Chelsea, actually. So that's been fun. What people don't realize about you, some of them do, but most of them don't, just how hard you work at that stuff. I think people think that you're just that way, which is probably somewhat true. I think you have a good, big heart anyway.
Yeah.
But you just get up and you visualize it and you give till it hurts, and you've seen other people do it and you see how happy it makes them. And anyway, it's been cool because we get to spend a lot of time and we're neighbors and all kinds of stuff. And so it's just fun to try to frankly be better at that.
Yeah.
This morning I woke up and I went out to the gym to get after it, a little boot camp on the Peloton. And I looked across, it's dark out and your office light was on.
Yep.
And it was like 5:45 and it fired me up. And like, I really didn't want to go to that gym in that moment. And I saw the light and I was like, let's go.
I know it really is kind of that, going back to David, it was the very end, asked him that question, said, hey, what advice would you give to, an aspiring entrepreneur? And his answer was really interesting. He just said, it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And he said, you have to be obsessed.
For sure.
You got to go to bed thinking about it.
That resonated with me.
You got to wake up thinking about it. And I think, I think about,
well, and I think he said, rightfully so, he said, and that's, by the way, a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Because I think that's how we are. I think at some level, right? We try to keep a good balance. But the truth is, being an entrepreneur, you're not going to always have a lot of balance. And that's just what comes with being a entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Doesn't mean you can't have balance and still not love and value your family.
But there's times and seasons. There's times where it's like
you're going to have to grind.
Yeah.
And if you don't love it, probably shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. And if you're not obsessed, like I think about the times in my life, like the different successes that I've had in my career.
Yeah.
And like a full obsession, like a unrelenting, absolute certainty, absolute commitment to go be the best has been the difference.
Yep.
And it's not that you don't overdo it sometimes. I remember Matt Eyring. I was talking to Matt Eyring this one time.
Yeah.
He was, chief innovation officer at Vivint, real sharp guy, went to HBS, worked, with Clayton Christensen and
totally.
Yeah. Sharp guy. But I was talking to him about this principle of balance.
Yeah.
And he just said, there's no such thing. He's like, you're kind of, balance is like the wings of the plane. And sometimes it's up here and then sometimes it's over here. And ultimately you kind of need to know where home base is and you need to kind of directionally
like North Stars.
You got to have some North Stars and know where you're going. But there's just times where you have to go to work for 70, 80 hours a week for a long time. And there's other times where you get kind of a disproportionate amount of just beautiful time with the family and relaxing. And
yeah. And I would say, especially if you're an entrepreneur and owner of a business versus having a 9-to-5 job, right?
And I think that's the trade-off.
There's nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
My brother said to me not too many months ago, he's founded a company and, it's not easy, right? What we're doing is not easy. And he was at Costco and he saw somebody that was like picking up some stuff for barbecue and it was like 5:30 p.m. and you could just tell that this was a happy guy that worked as an employee at a company and job was over.
But was pretty happy.
And he's just like not thinking about the company,
collecting
his paycheck, and he's going to have that barbecue. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Like we have barbecues, we have fun at Costco, we have plenty of fun, but, he didn't own the business. You have to think about the people that he's going to have to keep paying, how they're going to grow, all the different things. And it's no small thing, but it's also like super fulfilling. It's a different level of getting in the arena.
There's
for sure.
just trade-offs. There's trade-offs, and we're all making them. I was talking to Case Lawrence.
Yeah.
And he went to law school and, at Duke, and then
That's cool.
was doing his, working for a company in Silicon Valley that was doing a lot of the M&A and, the different mergers and acquisitions. And, but there was a point in his career when he wanted to go do it on his own.
Yeah.
Started a business and kind of perfect product market fit the day he got started.
Yep.
And it was up and to the right. And then 2007 hit. And the global financial collapse happened. He was in real estate. And he just got crushed. And literally like 2 years just to unwind his business, like working for free just to unwind it and not go bankrupt.
Mm.
And he gets to the end of that thing, and he's got people who care about him so much saying, hey, that's why you went to law school. You got a backup plan. And he was, kind of hustling to go get like his credentials in place and get caught up on, his training so that he could do that. But he just couldn't go down that road again. It was almost like he'd taken the blue pill.
Yeah.
And he'd experienced like the freedom that had come and like the highs and the lows.
The risks and the rewards and the
highs,
working for himself.
For sure. And
not doing billable hours.
Yeah. It's,
but there's plenty of people that'd be like, yeah, I'll go do billable hours, and they could be super happy and live a great life. But
it's not a right or wrong.
Yeah.
But what David said was profound. I've never heard it articulated like that, which is just bottom line. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And if it is for you, it's going to take a different level of commitment than just to kind of be casually interested. And I think about the Sandlot story, and that Sandlot story, every step of the way, there's steps of like unreasonable sprints and unreasonable work.
Yep.
That goes into getting the job done. I think it makes me really proud.
Yeah.
It's, when I think about what we built over the last 3.5 years, it's the most proud of anything that I've ever built in my career.
Yeah. 100%. 100% the same. Yeah. No, I mean, it's also the hardest too, right?
Super hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ignorance really is bliss. You kind of get started on that journey, and it's like, if you knew how hard it was, you may not have started. I don't know,
Well, and I do think, like, when I look back at some of this stuff, I don't think I would have been as confident, on the Sandlot side if I hadn't already started something else.
Yeah.
Because I could set up HR. Okay, I could get an LLC. All right, we need a website. There's all these little things that scare you.
Capabilities that you earned.
Until you've done them.
Yep.
Either you can do them yourself now, or somebody that can do them for you and pay them or something.
One of my favorite Alex Dunn quotes, talking about entrepreneurship. He said, the way to learn to be an entrepreneur is to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I listened to his podcast. It's so good. But I agree. Like there are things that I have learned in the last 3 years. You just can't learn so many of those things. I mean, you and I have gone to these Harvard courses, right? And it reminds me so much of business school. You're getting exceptional education. The instructors are world class, but there's still academics that are in there teaching us, right? And it's just not like the same.
It's like when I have to make payroll.
Yeah.
There's a different level of accountability. And when it's personal capital that's at risk, I'm going to go risk personal. There's a different, you learn that stuff.
Yeah.
You don't get casual with the learnings. You get in and you get smart.
There's no theory going on.
No, you get smart because it matters more. And I think that's where, the learning comes from, is just the way to learn it is to learn it. It's to be in the arena and to do it. And then you get those capabilities that ultimately end up, being, they end up being kind of your ability, your resourcefulness to go create value in the market.
Yep.
Before we finish up, this is a question that I love asking people, and it's so different per person, but talk to me about your faith, and talk to me about your faith journey and how that influences your decision-making and the way you see the world and the way you treat people and
Yeah.
where it sits.
Man, it is a journey, isn't it? I think it's like a living, thing. I think, and we heard it throughout this podcast, I went from not having really much faith, I would say, and no interest going on a mission and different types of things, to then probably going pretty strong that direction and coming back and being like, full send on living the gospel a particular way, and with a lot of goals oriented that way. And I think that's served me really well. And I'm so grateful for it. I think as time's got on, I believe as you get older, I think you just see more. So you have a little more perspective. You've been through more hard things.
Yeah.
So you have more empathy, I think, for people going through hard things.
Yeah.
Which is one of those blessings of going through crap, that can be a blessing to others. And you also just see different models, people that maybe have basically the same faith, but do things a little different. I think it's just like this, like, I'm grateful that my wife and I were getting this spot where it's like, it's about abundance. It's about presence. It's about, Christ and, our family, and keeping it pretty simple.
Yeah.
And not sweating a lot of the little things, and frankly, not knowing how a lot of it works.
Yeah.
Right. And being okay with that. I don't know a lot of it, but I do know that when I go to church, when I spend time with my kids, when I value those things, spend time when I work hard.
Yeah.
It feels like things will work out. They have worked out, not necessarily easy. And so, yeah, I'm grateful for it. I have parents that raised me up that way, and that's been a blessing to have. We live in this amazing country. There's like, some of it's just like less about doctrine and more about just gratitude.
Yeah. No, it's so interesting. Like, it is a journey. I think when I think about my life, I think about examples of people that inspire me.
Yeah.
And they're from all different religions, but they have certain traits.
Yep.
And for the most part, they're happy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they bring just an energy of happiness, and they're present.
For sure.
And they listen, and they care, and they serve. And I take those like simple things, and I'm like, for me, it's simplified so much.
Yeah.
And like, it's almost like the older I get, the more simple I just have to keep it, because you just, the world gets more complex.
For sure.
And, you have friends from all different, religions and all different kind of theologies. But the older I get, the more I just love people. And, I just want everybody to be happy, and I just want to be good to people and add value.
You are, brother. It's been a big, huge blessing to me. You give of yourself and your resources, and it's super inspiring, and I think it's been a gift to me, I think that's it, man. I read that Law of Love book.
It's so good.
It's like changed me.
Yeah.
If I were to it's almost like, that's pretty much what I think about faith.
Yeah.
At least what I want to think about it.
Yeah.
What I want and how I want to act with it, which is like just basically live by love and like care about people, go out of your way, take the time.
Yeah.
Focus on relationships, and, do things that aren't expected, and do them not because you're going to get something out of it.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do. And I probably, the whole transactional thing is hard to root out entirely, but like, man, when you get the love thing right, or if you just even think about it at the beginning of the day, anyway,
I think it's just a higher level of like, experiencing life.
Yep.
Like when you're experiencing on, out of a lens of gratitude, and out of a lens of service, and out of a lens of contribution.
Yeah.
Out of a lens of just like presence and giving and loving, you know what I mean? And it's beautiful. And I think when I get out of that, And when I get into scarcity and when I get into keeping score and when I get into like,
I think the love gets you to this place of like, where you can set fear aside more, you know, because that's so much of it, right?
When it's paralyzing. You know, I mean, like if you dwell in that, it truly is paralyzing.
Instead of like fearing if I don't do this, this bad thing will happen. It's more just like, no, I'm not even going to think that way. Just what can we do that's going to bless somebody? You know what I'm saying? Just outside yourself. And it's hard. It's a really hard thing because you have to go, you have to provide, you have to think about, you know, making money and different things, part of it. But anyway, it's been fun to play off each other on that outside of work stuff.
Yeah, I think that's one more kind of thing that I'd end on is how important are just being around great people.
Yeah.
And just how influential that is. I think about the other night, you know, we put that thing together for Dave.
Yeah.
And you got Todd, who's a neighbor. And it's one call. Hey, you know, can we use your airplane hangar? And he just rolls out the red carpet. He went so far above and beyond what we ever would have asked him to do.
Yeah. It's still hard for me to get used to that. I mean, I'm not used to seeing people that like generous and it's really cool.
But it's so inspiring, you know, and I think about like this principle of excellence.
Yeah.
And standards of excellence and standards of service. And, you know, you experience it and you just like, but you being around those people, you know, and the mentors that you have and like having those like examples to look to and say, that's how I want to live life.
Yeah.
I think it's the good stuff in life. I think it's so inspiring. So, brother, appreciate you coming chatting.
Absolutely.
I think the last thing that I'd say is, you know, I've had a million partners, you know, a lot of different partners. You're special for so many reasons. And I think the one that I love about you is we're very different from a skill set standpoint. Like we
probably in some ways. Yeah.
I think that, you know, there's parallels, but we actually have like differences.
Yeah.
You know, I think about your ability to write and your ability to articulate a point, your ability to go granular into details. And I have such a hard time doing it. You know what I mean? I can hardly read an email.
Yeah.
But there's a shared values aspect. And I think about the great partnerships that I've had. And it's not in the sameness that makes it great. It's in the differences.
Yeah.
But it's valuing the differences.
Yeah.
And, you know, if I could kind of honor you or give you, you know, props, it's that out of any partner that I've ever had, I think you valued my skills more, or at least as much as anybody I've ever had. And it just, you know, it's allowed me to shine.
Well, that makes me happy to hear you say that, because that's definitely true. But I probably don't say it enough, you know, but I
feel it. I've always felt it. You know, you kind of let me spread my wings and fly, and you know, I'm unorthodox, and you know,
that's part of why it works.
Yeah,
you know, and it's like knowing both worlds and both backgrounds and thinking about. I mean, it's been so fun. I think where we've had success is when we've just taken ego out of it. And just said like,
best idea wins.
Yeah, our best idea, or like, for some reason, this person I think is going to be way better if you talk to them than me. For sure. For these reasons.
I mean, that's so funny. I mean, that's like a case study in of itself.
And I'm not afraid to say the same thing back. Like, look, this person for some reason thinks, I don't know, they're going to
so much of the capital that we raise, it's not from pensions or endowments or foundations. It's from family offices and high net worths. And this interesting lesson of just a prophet's never a prophet in your own land, you know, and it's like the people that, you know, kind of worked around you, maybe you don't have that same influence as like, I think about this Mark Twain quote about, you know, an expert's a fellow from another town. And it's like, you know, it's fun to be able to kind of yin and yang and go build a business and, you know, just know that, you know, you're going to have more influence with a certain client or company we're trying to buy and vice versa. And
for sure.
Anyway.
No, it's been fun. So this really, really fun to take a minute. We're grinding right now on some stuff. It's fun to just like step out, reflect. That's one of the gifts that you've given me. It's just like you are so good at priming and visioning and stepping back and appreciating things and thinking about bigger picture. And that's so healthy. And I don't think people do that enough. The ones that are real successful, I think, will actually take an inventory. Am I focused on the right things? Am I happy? Am I spending too much time here or there?
I mean, I think about this stuff a lot. A friend of ours, passed away when he was 41 years old. Private equity guy, super successful guy, family. And I think about that probably more than I should, and just kind of think, man, I got to be present. Yeah. And I got to just enjoy right now. You know what I mean? Not work for I love grinding and I love building, but there's that aspect of like, I need to enjoy right now, because you just don't know how many of these days you get. You know what I mean? And all of us,
healthy.
All of us have had friends that kind of check out before their time.
Yep. No, it's been a true blessing to me because I can grind. I'm not, but you can get lost in it.
You get lost in
the obsession, the same obsession that we were just talking about.
That strength becomes a weakness.
It can become a weakness.
Yeah, it becomes a weakness, and the problem with business, and it's not a problem, but like, it's really addicting. And it's like really gratifying and real time. And you actually have like a real time scoreboard and you can see if you're winning or losing. And I think it checks a lot of those like fulfillment boxes, because it's just it's winning or it's losing, it's happening, you can take action, and you get like praise when it works, and some of these other things. You think about raising kids, it's not the same thing. Like, you're putting in work for 20 years to go see if it worked. You know what I mean? Like, making these deposits, all the time. Anyway, it's fast, but that same thing, it's like, it's much more immediate with work. It's easier to feel like you're succeeding in work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it takes real discipline to make sure you're not overdoing that particular thing. You know what I mean?
And not underdoing it. Like, it's a dance.
Yeah.
It's like this. It's an art and it's a science for sure. Well, brother, thanks for coming and chatting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love doing it.
Great.
We'll do it again.
So fun. Thanks, man.